So my name is Sarah. This is our seventh Get Into interview. Thank you so much, Tai, for joining us. And yeah, we'll get started. So Tai, I'm very, very thankful to have worked with Tai. He's had a very interesting career ranging from customer service, development, social media management, and software support, among other things. And he has also developed quite a few mobile apps. He also paints and volunteers. I don't know where he finds time to do all these things, but he does. He is self-taught and has taken multiple apps to the App Store. So Tai gave a very insightful talk at our office where we both worked, and he just had an astounding amount of knowledge. So I'm very grateful that he's come to share that knowledge with us today. Welcome, Tai.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, thank you so much for that lovely intro. It was really, just like an absolute pleasure to be here and to talk all things apps.
Perfect, thanks. So just to cover off a little bit about all the things you've done, you've had a really varied career. Would you be able to just somehow succinctly tell us about all the things you've done and how you found your way into and out of and back into technology?
Yeah, cool. So I think ever since I was a small boy, I've been like completely obsessed with computers and technology. I remember very vividly the first time we had a computer at home. It was a Windows 95 machine, and I loved that thing. Like, you know, I was so fascinated about how things worked. Like, why if you double click on an icon, does it open up this particular program? And messing around with MS Paint and Solitaire and just like everything on it, that just, you know, excitement for technology and getting new things like, you know, like a new keyboard or printer and you know, a joystick or whatever it was, just being like really excited about that. And I think that carried through throughout my entire life. And I remember when I was really young, my primary school teacher was a massive nerd and could see that I was really interested in computers and basically bullied my parents to get the internet. And like we were one of the first people on our street to have a computer with the internet. And I remember people coming to our house to like use the internet because it was this like new thing. Wow, you know, the internet, you can send electronic mail to someone who lives on the other side of the world instantly, and this just whole world of possibilities. And I really wanted to touch type because he could touch type, and I was just like, this is just magic. Like, he's not looking at the keyboard and he's typing. Like, how is that possible? So I think all of those things and just the genuine passion for how things works and problem solving kind of pushed me into this direction. And I have a twin brother, and we're really close. He's really artistic, very creative, and I'm the kind of more logical kind of problem solver. And I think it mixes really well together as well. So I think just a happy explosion of all these things pushed me into doing that. So yeah, like technology is a massive passion of mine. Art is a massive passion of mine, and doing something that enables me to do both of those things, such as working in apps or web development, software development, it just seemed like the perfect route to kind of go down.
Okay, cool. So why mobile apps in particular of all the things one can build?
I think apps was particularly interesting because I was there at the start. So I remember very vividly when phones moved from being, you know, keyboard based to being more touch based, and the ongoing war between Apple and Android, Google, and kind of it not being so fragmented. You know, you could develop an app and it could be used on so many platforms. And I think that accessibility was really attractive. You know, I can make an application and my friends, my colleagues, my family could just download it on the App Store. You know, there was no barrier of entry. You know, they didn't need to have the latest computer with, you know, this particular graphics card or, you know, any kind of like really strong technical know-how. I could build really simple, engaging applications and be like, hey, download it on your phone, the thing that you have with you all the time. So I think that was the main attraction for mobile app development.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So just the ubiquitous and accessibility of the
Yeah, definitely.
platform. Yeah, very
100%.
cool. Great answer. And can you tell us a little bit about some of the apps that you've made?
Yeah, sure. So I started with video games. So I'm a massive video game fan, and I wanted to build something. So for my first app, I wanted to build something that was really simple. So I created a small game called Spacebots, which takes the concept of a very well-established game, Brick Breaker or Arkanoid or Breakout, goes by many different names, where you're a paddle and you're bouncing a ball and you're trying to break blocks. But I kind of remixed it. So I took out all the blocks and you have a ball and the ball gets faster every time it hits you. And you can get power-ups and there's things that you need to avoid. So it was kind of taking a simple idea and kind of making it into my own. So that was the first app that I made. The second app that I created was a game called Spacebots Match, and it is using that character from the first game I made into a puzzle kind of matching game. So I really like Tetris and columns and those sort of kind of match the colors, match the objects, and they disappear. You know, really easy to learn, but quite tricky to master, especially in the later stages. So I created a little twist on that, and that's called Spacebots Match. And then the next game was actually like a little task that I challenged myself with. So I made a small game every day for a week. And then I went onto social media and I said to the people that follow me on social media, which of these 5 games do you like the best? You know, I'm going to take one of those, flesh it out a little bit more, and you know, make it into a small mobile application. And the game that had the most kind of interactions and the one that people wanted to see the most was a game called Cube Sprint, which is a black and white game where you control a small cube trying to get to the top of the universe, so while avoiding things. But it's very, very heavily referencing kind of games from the Atari sort of late 70s, early 80s era. So that was really, really fun to kind of flesh out and build. The next game that I worked on was a contract piece. So I worked with a company called Play Innovation, and they are an outdoor sports and leisure company. So they make toys and games for playgrounds. So they wanted one of their products to be made digital. So I worked with the team in building that. That was like the first piece of work that someone paid me to build, and it was really just a very daunting but, you know, massively enlightening experience, because it was like, you know, I had complete creative freedom, and you know, you know, just learned lots and lots of stuff, and you know, really, really fun to kind of build and, like, you know, beta test and, you know, the rest of it. But to actually, you know, I had to keep pinching myself, you know, and being paid to do something that I just really enjoy doing. So that was a really, really cool opportunity, and that game is still out in the app stores. Then the next game I made was a game called TikTok tap, and it's really simple. You see a time between 5 and 10 seconds, and there's a timer, and you have to stop the timer as close to the time as possible. But the little twist is that the timer disappears after 2 seconds. So it's kind of like how you perceive time, and you press the button and it works out how close you were to that particular time. And you do that 3 times, it works out your average score, and that's it. So really, really, really simple idea. And then after all of that game making, I was like, I need to do something different. You know, I'm sick and tired of games. So I decided to make something completely different. I wanted to learn a new programming language, and that was Swift. So for iOS, Mac development primarily. And I decided to do the most simple thing ever, and that is to ask users a question. And that question is, who are you? So the app is called Who Am I? You download it, you put in some details, and you answer that very philosophical question, who are you? And you upload your answer to the app, and you can read what people have said all around the world. And yeah, people really got on board with it. You know, it's such a simple idea. Like, you know, how would you answer this one question? But everyone's answer is unique. So it's really quite nice to see how people have answered it. And, you know, because some people put stuff that's really short, some people put really long answers, and just seeing where people are from around the world. Yeah, super interesting, and completely different from what I've worked on before. So yeah, that is all of the apps that I've made so far. Hopefully many more to come in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And then I believe that I forgot about that one, but that's actually one of my favorite ones that you've built. You ended up doing a gallery event on your
Yes.
project.
Yeah. So that was a great opportunity as well. So kind of moving it from the digital into a physical space. So all of the portraits that people uploaded, we printed it out. We had a space, and yeah, we had all the portraits up on the wall. We had a map with pins from where all people came in, and people could come in and view the exhibition and also take part in the exhibition. So it was a real kind of combination of digital and physical, which was, yeah, just amazing to be a part of, and yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah, I think you touched on there something else about mobile phones is just they're so part of us now. You can make apps are really personal, you know. It's quite a different perspective from building a web application. So yeah, very, very interesting, very cool. I thought it was interesting that you ended up doing a whole gallery, just from your game.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, lots of ideas there for people to try and emulate themselves and learn how to get into mobile development. Cool. So so you mentioned Swift. Have you written Apple apps and Google apps?
So great question. So I've messed around with Java to write native applications for Android, but all of the apps that I've built for Android have been via Unity, which is a cross-platform IDE, which spits out both a Xcode project for Mac and iOS, but also Java projects, so you can export it onto Windows and web applications, as well as for the Google Play Store for Android devices.
Right, Unity, is that C#?
It is indeed. It is indeed. And I made the very, very big mistake of trying to update a game that was made in a now deprecated language, and just trying to see if it would work. and it didn't, and it took me a really time to try and fix it. And then I just turned around and said, you know what, I'm just gonna start it from scratch. But I think Unity is it's really good that you can export it into so many different. I mean, with tweaks, you have to, it's not perfect. There are some kind of minor changes that you have to do, but in terms of accessibility and kind of building once, but being able to export into loads of different platforms, it's really cool.
Okay, interesting. So would you say you've got a preference for using Unity over Swift then, given that you've now done some in Swift?
To be honest, I really enjoy using Swift. I think with native app development, you can tap into some really cool APIs, which you might not necessarily be able to do in Unity or cross-platform IDE. So I think every situation is different, but I think for a lot of indie developers or solo developers or very small teams, it's very attractive to use React Native or to use Unity or any kind of other cross-platform services, because it allows you to build once and export into many different places. But I think maybe bigger companies would use native tools because it's just a little bit more flexible. But yeah, no, I think every situation is different, and I've seen edge cases for both sides of the fence.
Sure. Okay. So it sounds like so some of the points you made there as like an indie developer who only has so much time and is supporting themselves, it may be worth going with Unity or React Native.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you want to cast a wide net in terms of users and people that can actually use that particular application or game or service. Being able to say, hey, look, it's on Android and it's on Apple as well as the web and Windows Phone and BlackBerry. Maybe not those, but like to have a wide audience is really appealing for smaller teams, because you want to test the market. It might do really poorly on Apple, and you can say, do you know what, actually we're going to focus on our users on the Google services because that's who actually like it, rather than I guess alienating or excluding a particular group that could be your perfect target audience. And I always think about Made, the furniture shop. They have an application only on iOS, and it's probably well within their remit to be able to have an Android application as well. But they've taken that decision to say, look, we want, Apple is like our customer for the app, and Android users can use our website instead. So like companies take it in different ways. So even big companies like that might take a different approach to saying, hey, look, we want an application on both, because it's really difficult when you've scaled to maintain that parity between versions, because one operating system might have this new feature and the other one doesn't, and customers are like, oh, why don't you have this? So it's a delicate balance, and I think every company tackles it differently. But yeah, I think it's a whole lot of fun, no matter on what approach you take. The benefits are definitely there.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent points from company view and sort of an individual view. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much. So with these applications, Google and Apple both have review processes before your application actually makes it into the store.
That's correct.
So I'd like to know, what is it about those processes that either surprised you or frustrated you?
Yeah, I think it's the length of time, especially from, I think both platforms has things that I really like about them and things that I don't really like about them. And I think the process, just strictly talking about the process, the Apple review process can be quite long. So every application is manually reviewed by a person, while on the Android side, it's not, and will only be reviewed by a person if it's flagged for any kind of breach of a particular term. So, if you release something on Android, it could be out relatively quickly. There's like a process that they do, but it could be out in a couple of hours. But on the Apple side, I've had applications that have taken weeks before they've gone on the store. So
Wow.
I think, yeah. So if you have, money that is tied to a particular application, that could be quite frustrating. And the same is said for updates as well. So when you have an update, that needs to be reviewed as well. While on Android, any reviews are just kind of pushed straight away. Any kind of stalling to your app being on the App Store is that initial upload. But once that APK file is on there, any updates kind of just roll on. While Apple, any updates will have to be reviewed. And I think that's the one thing that surprised me. I thought it would just be like, oh, you just pull it on and, it's processing and then it's available to download. But no, someone has to look at it and they'll give you feedback. It might be there's no privacy policy, or this button doesn't conform to our interaction guidelines, or whatever the reason is. Like, you get detailed feedback. It's not like this app is not good enough. They'll give you that feedback, but it can be particularly frustrating if you are working on something that's quite time sensitive.
Yeah. Okay, good to know, and quite different experiences as well.
No, definitely.
And then before we move on to our quick fire round, have you do you know if there's a restriction on like how many times they can send your app back, or is it just a constant process of you put it out there, you get some feedback, you put it back, then you get feedback again, or is there a cutoff for how many times they'll decline your app?
I've never heard of a cutoff of, too many back and forward that they say, look, we're not going to reach a middle ground here. We're going to say you can't have this on the App Store. But I have heard cases of, quite significant applications, that kind of pushback between getting the app approved, ready for sale, and in this kind of limbo where it can't actually be accessed. And there's a couple of really big cases. I think the most recent one is Hey, hey.com. It's like an email client, and Apple and Google take a 30% cut of any in-app purchases. That's just like a flat fee that they've always had. And a lot of companies try and circumvent this by either increasing the price by 30% if you buy it via the app, or redirect customers to a mobile site on the web where they paid the fee and then they're redirected back into the app. So they kind of skip the whole Apple, Google payment process, and it's done over their web client. And obviously Apple, 30% is a lot of money, especially for really popular apps. So they don't want that. They say that if there's any in-app purchases, you have to buy it via the app. And a lot of companies have, taken Apple to court, saying that it's unethical and all of this kind of stuff. And the creator of Hey, also the creator of Ruby on Rails, was very public in saying that, Apple have monopoly and Google have monopoly as well, and they're squeezing these really small devs. And they actually did, in this case, allow them to be able to redirect to their website. But I'm sure if I tried that with Apple, I wouldn't get very far. So it also highlighted the problem of, this guy is obviously very well known in the community. So we're kind of back to square one. So I think that the app process is a little bit broken, but hopefully this will change things in the future.
Okay. Yeah, well, good to know. I suppose it is the reality of putting stuff on their platform at the
Yeah,
moment.
exactly.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we're going to lighten the mood a little bit to talk
Okay,
about
I'm ready.
taking a third of our money. So just a couple of quick questions, whatever comes to mind. Pick your favorite option.
Okay.
So, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs. Country you would love to visit?
Ooh, very good question. I would say Argentina.
Argentina? Mm,
Yeah,
nice. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
night owl.
Night owl. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
My favorite question. Marmite, do you love it or hate it?
Hate it with a passion. Really dislike everything about Marmite. Although I do have a Marmite teapot and I love it.
Oh, well, that's good. They'll take it.
So it kind of balances out.
Agreed. Savory or sweet?
Ooh, I'm gonna. It's really hard. That is a good question. I'm gonna say savory.
Mm-hmm. Besides your own applications, what is your favorite app?
Ooh, good question. Good question. Um, I would have to say recently, and this is going to be really boring, but it's changed my life. I'm going to have to say calendar because getting
That was
kind of like,
my answer.
like organizing my life has been like a massive
Yes,
revelation.
the
If
calendar
you was
crowd.
like, honestly, like, it was like my New Year's resolution. If you asked me, in 2019, I would have said something completely different, but calendar for the win.
Yeah, man. I'm with you. Apple or Android?
Apple,
Apple. Do you prefer to be the face of the company or behind the scenes?
behind the scenes.
Kindle or physical book?
I'd have to say physical book.
Yeah, me too. Favorite meal to cook at home?
I would have to say, and this is like a main meal, it's not a dessert.
Mm-hmm. Any
Uh,
meal.
Cheesecake. Love
Yeah.
cheesecake. And it's just really easy to cook and quite therapeutic and it tastes great.
Cool. Nice one. And the last one is a product that you wish existed.
Teleportation machine.
Yeah. Nice. Good one. Good one. If you make an app that can teleport us,
Yeah, I mean
we'll,
that
sign up to test it out.
that'd be incredible.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ty. So now beyond the App Store, if I'm just starting out and I want to test my app or I want to share it with my friends without going through this whole review process, what is the mechanism that someone can use to just get an app on their phone that they've made?
Oh, yeah. So if the person was on Android, they can use Android Studio and just deploy it straight onto their phone. You just need a Google account. You don't need to pay for any like service to have it on your phone and show it to people. And the same with Apple as well. So you download Xcode, which is free, and you can deploy onto your phone. It's only a cost or only additional money. So you have to pay for a developer fee if you want to do anything over the air. So if you wanted to use like send a link on Twitter or Facebook and say, hey, download my app, you would have to pay a developer fee. But just to get started, just to see if it's something that you want to do, completely free.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So only if you need certain features or you want to use the process, you need a
Yeah,
license.
that's correct.
Otherwise, you use the IDE for whichever platform. Okay, that's easy enough.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. how have you found people to test your app? So you mentioned that you put some stuff out on Twitter.
Yeah.
Did you have a process before that? Like, were you asking your friends and your family, like, play my game? What was your process to find people? And as you've grown, what is your process as you've grown as well to find people to test?
That is an excellent question, and I think something that I never really thought of until you have to do it. Because when you're creating something, it definitely is like your baby. You know, you're very, very, protective over it. You feel a certain way. You kind of expect people to interact with it in a certain way, and then you show it to someone, and they completely like don't press that button that you've worked so long, and you're just like, oh, people are not just like me, and haven't been working on this for the last 6 months. So the way I got people to test it out was like the classic, started with friends, started with family, but a lot of the time I spent working on the game was actually on my commute. So my first app, Spacebots, back in 2013, I used to commute an hour and a half one way, an hour and a half back. So I had 3 hours to kill every single day. And this particular train had like the same people on the train, and they always sat on the same seat. And people would see me, coding away, and slowly, you kind of, people might ask you questions or whatever, and I say, oh, actually, I'm working on an application, and I would show, ask people, can you test it out? And people, if you ask essentially like a stranger, they're going to be quite polite. They're not going to say this is the worst thing ever. But some people are not so polite and will tell you exactly not what you would like to hear, but really, really constructive feedback. And that's what you want. You want honest feedback. So that was really, really, really good. And then obviously, as you kind of grow and you add features, I used Twitter. Twitter was incredible. Actually, a young man from Italy sent me a message and said, there's an issue, there's a bug on the iPhone 4, a very particular bug on the iPhone 4. And I didn't have an iPhone 4 to test. I borrowed my friends, and lo and behold, under these very unique circumstances, the game will just crash. And that was great to get that. And I fixed that particular bug, but I wouldn't have been able to catch it. And I just think it's incredible that people will take time out to test something and give you like really detailed feedback. But with some of my newer apps, and you build a community, with your contacts and with people that you meet at particular events or anything, and they are interested in what you do, and they kind of want to see what's next. And with Who Am I, and when I re-released Spacebots, I posted them on Reddit, and that was immense. That was really, really cool. Had hundreds of people test it, and give some really, really good feedback. And random people on the internet, they're not your friends. I mean, some of them are your friends, which is really nice, but some of the feedback I got was really kind of like scathing, but it was great because it was like things that you don't really think about, or design choices that maybe you thought was okay, and then maybe 5 people said, hey, look, this thing is actually quite distracting, or I didn't know I can do this, or when I'm trying to close the app, I actually moved this thing, and it that why isn't there a pause button, or whatever it is. I think getting a diverse pool of feedback is really important, and having that feedback loop of getting features and saying, hey, do you know what, I'm gonna update it. With Who Am I implemented a dark mode. That was a feature that a lot of people requested, and I implemented it. You know, and it's interesting because you've got so many different perspectives of one thing, and you're never going to please everyone. You know, everyone has an opinion,
Sure.
but it's great to kind of hear things that maybe you necessarily might not have thought about or understand, but you have that and you can kind of say, hey, I'm going to implement this or I'm going to change this. So really, really important. And I think anyone working on a project or something, you know, it's challenging because you're protective, but I think it's really important to kind of share and show what you're working on.
Mm.
I was super protective. I was like, you know, I don't want anyone to look at it until it's finished. But will it ever be finished? Is it ever going to be perfect?
Yeah.
And it's about kind of like letting it fly and
Yeah.
seeing, you know, if people like it, what people think of it, and tweaking it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so super important, really, really
Yeah.
important.
I think what you struck on there, so a couple of mechanisms then that worked for you was Twitter, Reddit, and just some good old fashioned conversation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. If you're, I mean, like the worst someone's going to say is no, but I think people are genuinely um, interested, and I think people like giving feedback. Um, so yeah, I think, you know, I implore everyone to, you know, strike up a conversation with a stranger and say, hey, what do you think of this website I
Nice.
built? So yeah,
Yeah. Just be ready to get some straightforward feedback, I
yeah,
guess.
definitely, definitely. Brace yourself.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And to build all these apps, you've mentioned now you've used multiple languages. Did you use anything in particular to learn these languages? How did you get over having to learn these different languages?
Yeah, I think the internet is a fantastic resource, and any programming languages or language has like the fundamentals, and I think just kind of reading those reference guides. So you know, for Unity there is comprehensive documentation on everything that you can do um, in it, and just to kind of get a really kind of small starter project open, there's loads of YouTube videos that you can watch, and you can pause it and kind of like, oh, you know, or download the source code, get it up and running, tweak it, and say, oh, I wonder how you know, a function or a loop might work in this particular scenario, and you find the syntax for it, and you test it out, and it works, and you tweak it a little bit. I think one of the best ways to learn is to do, and there's so many resources online, and I think also, and it is quite scary, but you know, following and reading up on people that make things using the product that you're using,
Hmm.
and you know, shoot them an email, say, hey, you know, I really like this particular app, I'm working on something, do you have any tips or, you know, any feedback or whatever that is. And 99.9% of the time people are very happy and willing to give you that information. You know, people are great. You know, lots of people put stuff online for free, you know, completely just because they like to teach, or they work on something, it's completely open source, so you can download it, you can decompile it and look at all the comments they've put in the code as well. So yeah, I think learning programming languages in this day and age is really accessible, and there's tons and tons of free content online. And if you're, you know, if you want to kind of take it to the next level, you can, you know, jump on a course. You know, they're not too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the fundamentals to kind of see if you want to do it, there's more than enough free things, and that's the way I've learned. So I've
Yeah.
just learned from YouTube, reading the references, downloading source code and kind of having a play around with it, and having communications with people whose work I really enjoy, or maybe I've watched the talk and I've said, you know what, actually, it'll be really good to get their opinion on this, or what they struggle on, or what resources they use, and build that kind of community. I think it's the software engineering community is really good for that. It's very daunting putting yourself out there, but you've kind of got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So definitely recommend it.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear that you've had a good experience, because you're right, it is scary, but at least to hear that someone has gotten some value out of the community like that is helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's great. So it sounds like if you're a complete beginner, the docs are pretty good, and from there you can kind of Google and grow,
100%.
and reach out to people. Okay, that's great. And then we wanted to ask, people would have, well, I'm sure you've spoken to quite a few people about the apps that you've made, and they would have made some assumptions like, you must be rolling in dough, and, it's so easy. And what are some commonly held beliefs that you've come across?
I can talk about this.
True.
I could talk about this for a very, 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 very long time.
Pick two.
But two. I think the comment about money, about making lots of money, or it's a really easy way to make money, is by making apps. And I think how quick people believe you can make apps, those are kind of like the two most common misconceptions, I think. Because even the app that I made, which asks users one question, took me 6 to 8 months to develop and test and release on the App Store. So I think the length of time is a huge misconception, and the money thing. I think there are some groups, some individuals, some small teams that make a lot of money from apps. But the App Store is huge. Hundreds, if not thousands, of apps are released every single week. So it's really difficult to kind of be highlighted in the midst of all of these apps. The Facebook app has been in the top 10 apps since it came out, and it's like, so that's one space that's always allocated to Facebook, and then you've got one for Instagram, and then you've got one for WhatsApp. So you've got these apps that are never going to move, they're never going to shift from the space. So it's not like the music charts where it's kind of like constantly changing. You've got these permanent apps that are never going to leave. There's not going to be a time where WhatsApp's going to drop off from the top 10. It's just not going to happen. So it's really challenging to kind of be highlighted in the App Store. And I think that's what turns off a lot of people as well from even pursuing that.
For sure.
But I think one of, to kind of tack onto that, a lot of people that I've spoken to want to develop solely for money, which is understandable. We do things so we get money, so we can live, completely understandable. But I think the passion has to be with building, making stuff that you enjoy. And if you make money, if you make lots of money, that's just like a bonus. And I think once people that I've spoken to know about the length of time and the potential that it might not make money, a lot of people just don't want to do it. So I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. I totally understand it. It would be great if all my apps were in the top 10.
But it's a reality of going into it.
100%.
So when you were building your apps, did you just build them for fun, or did you look at the competition?
That's a really good question. All of the apps that I've made, the first thing I do is I come up with an idea, and then I research and I check if there's anything like it on the market. Because for me, I like to create unique experiences. So if I was to build something and it's something that's already made, it's not really going to add value. So I want to be, I want to make things that are unique. So Spacebots, I've done lots of research to see if there's any kind of game that was similar. There wasn't, so I ran with it. Who am I? The app asking people one question. I thought, there must be an app like this, and there wasn't. So I was like, that's great. It's so simple that no one's thought of it. So I made it, and all the other apps that I've made, nothing like it. So I run with it. There's 1,000,001 apps that you can message people on. And very, very easily I could have added a comment feature or a like feature to Who Am I, but I wanted to replicate a gallery experience. And in a gallery, you can't leave a comment or you can't like it. You kind of view pieces of art, and you kind of go on with your life. And I wanted to replicate that in a digital world. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've gotten from Who Am I, is people like the fact that there isn't any comments, because it's something that's so different, because every app you can do that. So it's all about taking risks and just doing things that you want to do and enjoy doing, and having a fun time while doing it.
Yeah, I think what's very interesting to me about your approach to this and using apps as your platform is it's just a very creative thing for you, and the ability that you can get your creativity out to a lot of people and make it very accessible. I think that's a great perspective on this, especially given the realities of having to give a 30% pay cut to the host. I think you need to go into this kind of thing with passion.
Definitely, 100%.
Simon had a question around, have you considered adapting any of your apps for other platforms, namely Siri, Google Assistant, or Alexa?
I think that would be incredible. I think that, I would love to, 100%, 100%. I think it's just a process, but I would love to kind of have it everywhere. I think, all of these new APIs and services are really interesting, and, becoming more and more integrated with our daily lives. Like I use CarPlay a lot when I'm driving around, and if I could have something to kind of help in that kind of task that's quite boring, would be really, really awesome as well. So yeah, something that I'm really interested in and would love to do more. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay, thanks for that. So we've got one more quickfire round for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? Ready, doing the thing. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Favorite country you've been to so far?
Ooh, I would have to say it would have to be the Netherlands.
Okay. What did you like about the Netherlands?
Everything. The food was great. Everyone's really nice. It's really flat as well, so you can go for a nice cycle or skate, and yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Mouse or trackpad?
Mouse.
Mm-hmm. Burrito or pizza?
I would just say, because of the sheer quantity that I consume, pizza.
Okay. PC or console?
Console.
Nintendo or PlayStation?
Nintendo.
What is your favorite game?
Oh, I've had a lot of time to think about this one, and without a shadow of a doubt, it is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on the N64. That masterpiece, masterpiece.
Very cool. Nice. When you're not playing Zelda, um, what is the best book you've read recently?
Ooh, best book I've read recently. Um, there's two that I've read recently. One is The Fundamentals of Swift, and the other is the 50 Greatest Cheesecake Recipes. So I'm slowly making my way through. So those two very recent good book purchases.
Yeah, very cool. Very consistent.
Yeah, that's me. I'm very simple. I'm a simple man. Like those.
Oh, cheesecake, Zelda, and mobile games. There you
That's me.
go.
That's me in a couple of words.
Music while working, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, and when you're not baking cheesecake and you just want a meal to take away, what do you go for?
Have to be a burger, I think.
Burger,
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah. Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
And then what is the best advice that you've been given?
Hmm. Um, I think that is a great question. I think not to be afraid. Um, uh, that is kind of something that has come up a few times. Um, and it's something that I've always kind of, been cautious because you don't want to put yourself out there, and no one, you don't want to get hurt or upset. But I think it's not to be afraid and to just go for it. I remember when I was making Who Am I, and I've got lots of Who Am I references just because it was, it's the latest thing that I've made. But I spoke to friends and family about it, and a lot of people were just like, "What's the point? You're not really gonna like. What are you doing? Or how are you gonna make money for it?" That was always the constant thing. Like, what's the point? How are you gonna make money for it? But some people got it. They're like, oh, that'd be pretty interesting to kind of see how, 7 billion people would answer one thing. I wonder if there's like correlation with country or age or anything like that. But yeah, I could have taken that and been like, you know what, actually, there is no point and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I went for it. And I think, even software development, I spent many years working in retail, and I'd always wanted to make that transition into software development. And when I had the opportunity to work freelance for this toy company, I was very open, and said, I just do this as a hobby. This isn't what I do full time. And they said, you know what, why don't you come in? You can do a week. We'll pay you. If you enjoy it, if we like you, then we can carry on. If not, you've got a week experience, and no harm done. And I was terrified. I was like, what if I mess up? What if I'm not the programmer, or I'm not the person that I think I am? But I went for it, and I was there for the entirety of the project, so 6 months, and that set me on this path of software development. And I think if I had been afraid or cautious or whatever, I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you now. So definitely, like, don't be afraid and just go for it. There's no such thing as a bad idea, and if it is bad, you can just delete it. But no, there is no such thing as a bad idea.
I like that. If it's bad, you can just delete it.
You could just
Move
delete
on.
it.
Perfect, thank you. So we had a question come through about Kotlin. So obviously you've spoken a little bit about how you've done cross-platform, and
Yeah.
you've also done a bit of Swift. Did you ever end up looking at Kotlin?
Yeah, so it was actually at work. A colleague said, Kotlin is really cool.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you should try it out. But I haven't taken the leap. But it's on my radar, and I think
Mm.
it's something that I keep on seeing. Like I constantly hearing about it. So it's something that I definitely need to kind of look in and delve in a little bit further.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. And then where do you sort of see mobile apps going? You've been building them for a while. Do you have any sort of, in your crystal ball, where do you sort of see mobile apps going in the
Mhm.
future?
That is a great question. I think um, one of two ways. And don't quote me on this. I think mobile apps are definitely kind of transitioning to a lot of experiences that are only on mobile are
Mhm.
slowly kind of going on tablet and slowly still on desktop. So it's this complete and cohesion between all devices that we use, and whether that's a smartwatch, a phone, desktop, tablet. So I definitely see it moving towards like being more cross-platform. But in terms of I guess sustainability, a lot of apps are moving to a subscription model rather than a kind of like one payment model, which was very profitable back when apps on mobile devices were first starting off. But
Mhm.
most companies don't have like one flat fee. It'll be free and then you pay for a subscription model, whether that's 30, 40, 50 pounds a year, or some are monthly, just because of the rising cost of giving X amount to the parent company, Google or Apple. So yeah, so I think definitely more apps moving towards subscription models, and I think more apps kind of becoming more cross-platform across devices. But in terms of the actual apps, like the content-wise of apps, kind of like the sky's the limit. I think nothing surprises me. I think in the early days it was all about the calculator and a flashlight and really kind of simple
Utilities, yeah.
utility, yeah. And now it's it's we've kind of gone full circle, and lots of companies that you wouldn't expect to have an app now have applications, or companies that were very resistant to having an app have an app just because everyone else is doing it. So lots of people playing catch up, or
Mm.
trying to be on trend. So yeah, really interesting to see kind of where things are going in the future.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Ty. I think it's been really fascinating to hear about um, why you started on this journey and the perspective that you've taken and how industrious you were in getting feedback and just a bit, some of the realities of building mobile apps. It's not a silver bullet to lots of financial freedom,
No,
which
it's
is
not.
which is okay. But it's as a creative platform, it's clearly a great one. So thank
No,
you so very much for coming
my
through
absolute
and
pleasure.
yeah, chatting to us today. Perfect. So Ty will have some resources for us that we will tweet out and put on the group as well. And we will send you all his links so that you can follow him and try some of his games out if you'd like.
Please do.
And clearly you can reach out and have a chat. So yeah. So our eighth and final get into for series one is going to be on the 10th of August. It is going to be with a data scientist. So she's going to be coming through and chatting to us about her journey into data science. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for joining, and we will see you next time.
Take care. Absolute pleasure, everyone. Take care.